I follow a lot of these like cinema YouTubers, and I'm like, why does Peter McKinnon's talking head look so damn nice? Like, what can I do to change it? And it's when you start asking yourself those questions, then you start making those changes. Same thing with drumming. They're like, why can't I do this? And you're like, oh, I need to learn my paradiddles. Okay.
It is funny how you need to, yeah, you need to get into it a little bit even to know the right questions to ask.
Exactly. But yeah, we can dig right in if you want to.
Yeah, let's go right to it. Did you review the loom or whatever and the footage I sent you? So I have a bunch of things in
I
my
did my
head.
homework.
Awesome. I have a bunch of things in my head, but we can start with your first impressions and go from there if you're willing.
I actually have some notes here,
Hit me.
just of things that we can chat about. There's a bunch of different levels to it. So there's like camera settings, lighting, and like color correction and color grading. So post production.
Mhm.
All of those things are gonna make the footage look better.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing that I asked myself was like, I don't I don't want my footage to look like iPhone video. So basically, you're doing all of the things to fight what an iPhone video looks like, which iPhones shoot at like 30 frames a second. I shoot at 24 frames a second. That's what most movies and things are shot at. Or it's 23.976 frames a second to be exact. But yeah. And then also your iPhone shoots an auto exposure, which is also big no. But it's convenient, like you walk outside, your phone adjusts. You go inside, it adjusts. But the cool thing is that we're shooting in a studio, so the light's not really changing. So switching to manual and just adjusting the settings to exactly what you want gives you so much more control over the image. Um, and then, yeah, as far as lighting, most people would think like the more lights, the better. But um, you kind of use the light to shape your subject and like separate them from the background and everything. So um, yeah, but we can dig deeper into all of those things. But that's like the general the general agenda for today.
Love it. You know what might be cool is actually, since we're thinking of releasing this as a podcast, maybe we leave that teaser there. Brandon's gonna break down my stuff, but actually get into your background just a little bit because you were like one of the OG YouTubers. You're By the time I noticed you, your production value was killer, and now you do stuff for Drumeo. Is that correct?
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about your life story that's led up to being in that spot?
Yeah, I can summarize it. So pretty much just started making videos, God, since I was like 14 or something like that. We don't have to start that far back, but you've been doing videos for a long time too. I think we've known each other for a long time, like a decade now. We were supposed to go to that shed with Forrest, but then I had to bail last minute. That was like 10
Right.
years ago. You were making
Yeah.
videos then too.
We still need to make that happen eventually, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. But yeah, just like making videos in my garage or like my little home studios just for fun. Um, this is like when, Mike Johnson was killing it, Adam Tuminaro, they're all still killing it, but like that's what I wanted to be. I was like, oh, I want to be like this online educator or something like that. So I was just kind of pumping out videos and then over time learn more about production and like trying to make my videos look better. And then also I follow a lot of special effects channels on YouTube. So I'm like, ooh, how can I like integrate these special effects into my videos? Um, and then so that kind of happened and the YouTube channel kind of grew. And then um, yeah, long story short, the connection with Drumeo, they hit me up to make one ad for them. I never made an ad in my entire life, but they hit me up and because I think they'd seen my videos and I actually did one video with them, like 12 hours of Drumeo, where I I spent 12 hours, doing the Drumeo stuff, and that kind of planted the seed with them. And then they were like, "Hey, we're coming out with this new product, the Quiet Kick. Can you make us an ad for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I can," even though I've never made an ad before. And basically just made that video for them, and they loved it. And then it kind of snowballed into a couple other things. They were like, "Oh, um, I forget what the next one was, but they were like, maybe you can come out here because we have Domino San Antonio coming up uh, to shoot a course, and we want like a trailer for it and everything. So they flew me out there to basically shoot it and edit it. And it's funny because I've always wanted to go to Drumeo, but as a clinician or whatever, to be on Drumeo. But um, I think this is kind of cooler that I get to go there and actually like make videos for them, um, kind of on the side because I'm like not on their video team per se, but I'm like a contractor on the side. So I kind of get to do my own stuff, which I really love, and they give me a lot of creative freedom. But anyways, after doing a couple of things like that with them, uh, then it just became more serious, and I was like, then I went part time for them, um, and continued making more and more ads, and then it just got so busy that they're like, okay, can we like get you full time? So now for like the past half year, I've been on like full time, and it's been great. Like we're pumping out a bunch of good videos, and I get to still be creative and like push my boundaries as a filmmaker and editor. And yeah, so that's how it kind of happened. You never expect, I don't know, things never go the way that you expect. Like I've always thought I was going to go to Drumeo to do a freaking course or a video or something like that. But now I'm working for them, which I'm stoked with. So, but yeah, it all just, it's funny now because like I wanted to be the drum guy. I wanted to be the best drummer ever and have like a big YouTube channel with a bunch of followers and stuff like that. And I love my YouTube channel still because that's like my creative outlet and I get to make videos that I'm excited about. But um, I realized like I don't really give a shit about the followers and stuff anymore because why? I ask myself, why do I want more followers? Why do I want so many subscribers? I don't really have a freaking answer for you. I think we're just bred to think that way now. Like, oh, like I have a bunch of subscribers. This is awesome. But I think the goal with YouTube is, or I think the reason why people should want a lot of subscribers or viewers is because that gets your name out there. And then you can kind of do the things that you actually want to do because people take you seriously because you have a bunch of subscribers or followers or something like that. And I think that's what happened with my channel. It got my editing chops up. And then Drumeo approached me, and now I freaking have like a real man adult job with the company that I love, and I love the drums and I love making videos. So it's like those two things that I get to do are like so sick.
What do you think, or why do you think you had such an eye for production and visuals all the way back when you started? Because as you said, we started at the same time, and pretty much until now, I could just not be bothered. And then all of a sudden, I've got the bug now. But I think you cued into the importance of it pretty early on.
Yeah, it's super weird because I actually took a video class in middle school. I was like in a video production class. And at the time, I just thought it was like a fun thing. Like we got to run around and make random videos, um, and I also took a photography class in eighth grade. So I learned very early on about like camera settings and all this stuff. But again, I just took it because I thought it was like fun. I didn't think it'd end up being my job later on, those things. And also, I think I was just around that type of stuff for a long time because my dad was a professional photographer also.
Hmm.
So he had like all these great cameras and he used to help me with like my drum covers when I was like 12 years old. Um, so I was all like around the video stuff and like watched him edit the videos together. And then also my brother was really into cinematography and like we used to make little short films together and I would like be an actor in his short film. And so yeah, it's weird. Like those little seeds early on were like kind of foreshadowing where my life is now. So maybe it's because of that. Maybe it's because, I was around my dad and he was always taking photos and videos and same with my brother. And then also my best friend, he's like a really good director now. And we used to like film skate videos together and shit. And he was always editing in his room while I was hanging out in his room, and he always had these cameras, and I was always playing with his cameras. So I think that's what it was, just like being around it. Um, so yeah, and now that's kind of how I started getting more into the video stuff. Um, Once I moved back to the States, because I lived in South Africa for a little bit, moved back to the States, and then my friend from middle school, he asked me to assist him on some jobs. So I'd be like first AC, like second cameraman, um, for these other like pretty big jobs. And I got to actually see how things work on a real set and kind of do things the right way. So
Hmm.
yeah, I also think that helped prep me for Drumeo to be able to like write, produce, and direct and edit this stuff for Drumeo now, which is great.
But to go back to what we started the conversation with, you probably had enough stuff in your head already that being on the set, you were able to make sense of it. Because if I were there, it would just be Greek to me. In fact, I see location shoots in New York all the time. They're always blocking traffic, and you just see a bunch of catering, a bunch of like industrial strength like light stands and dudes with dollies and like boom mics, and that's about all I can put together. So you clearly had enough exposure to it and interest that you were able to like immediately start picking things out of it.
Kind of. I guess some of the shoots, a lot of the shoots that we did were a bit more run and gun. So it was like he was on a camera and I was like on audio holding the boom, and we do like interviews or small like doc pieces, which I like that style better than like particularly a big set with a bunch of people on. But but yeah, actually one of the shoots we it was a big production. It was actually for the North Face. And dude, they
Hmm.
had like a girl for hair, a person for makeup, someone for lighting, and then also like a yeah, just someone just to make sure the set looked okay. And yeah, it's a lot of moving parts on like a real set.
Crazy. Well, I want to get into the details about the videography stuff, but what hopefully our listeners will wait just a little bit longer because I do want to ask you about your drum journey really briefly because obviously the videography and everything started to facilitate the drum career, and I think one of the first few things I saw from you was like the Hiatus Coyote Molasses cover. So like back in the day, the 20 teens, you were like doing high level covers of songs, and I'm sure there's a bunch of catching up we could do about this, but I'm curious about the genesis of that. Like, what do you think caused you to be early to video media and the internet as a way to further your drum career, and like what were your goals at the time and how have those changed?
That's a great question. Started making videos just because I wanted to make drum covers basically. And there weren't honestly many drum covers on YouTube at the time. Literally, I think I was watching like Cuevas covers. That's when he was like killing it. And but yeah, I was just learning these new songs like Rush and Dream Theater songs and stuff, and I wanted to like document it because my dad had cameras and he was always telling me like, "Ooh, like if you learn this song, we can video it and put it on YouTube." And I was like, "Oh, cool," because yeah, I just like the way drums look on video. They look cool. Um, so just started doing covers, like learning songs once I learned it, like post a cover. And it wasn't until um, the kind of like the drum off era where I was like practicing other random stuff to try and get good. And then JP Bouvet was a huge influence of mine, and he was doing like vlogs. And also Mike Johnson was doing lessons. And I was like, oh, maybe I could try and do a lesson. And so I did this lesson on the 6-stroke roll and like people on YouTube loved it. So I was like, okay, like maybe I can start doing lessons. And yeah, just started doing lessons. And I realized I love teaching actually from doing those lessons.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I never really knew what my goal was. I just liked making the videos and then having a platform to post them.
Okay, I've got to pivot
Yeah, what's up?
because your drumming was also like at a pretty high level, like stop the Instagram scroll level. You know what I mean? It's just like okay, average, 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 average. Ooh, what's this? So like you were already playing at a high enough level to like get people's attention, which is important when you're making videos, because videos are kind of an amplifier, right? Like if you can already kind of play like I maybe could in the 20 teens, like maybe videos help, but if you can't play at all, like maybe I couldn't in the 2000 aughts, it's not as big a help. So like how did you get to that level? And yeah, what's the backstory there?
I think it was just honestly like trying to learn songs because I was really into like progressive rock and uh, complicated drumming. I wasn't a groove guy. I was like, how many notes can I hit? How many like odd times can I try and play? And I think that just helps your chops as a player, you know? Like I still remember back in the day, like listening to songs and not being able to decipher what the drums were doing, and then working it out, and then being able to hear it. Like it's ear training, you know. And it's so nice now hearing something and being able, like, I know what he's playing. But there is that phase where like you can't hear. Um, so yeah, I just like wanted to get better at the drums, like because I thought technicality was the pinnacle of it. You know, like if I want to play a group in seven and play my octobans, and because I was really into like Dream Theater and Mike Portnoy and Neil Peart, and that's what I thought was the best. And then got into like heavier stuff or whatever, like Between the Buried and Me and Animals as Leaders. And then I kind of got into like the jazzy fusiony stuff like Snarky Puppy. And then that's when I realized that there's that different layer of complexity, which is like pocket and groove and like, you know, the jazz fusion guys who just like Nate Smith plays a groove and you're just like, what the how? And it's just like a simple beat, but you're like, why does it sound so good? Back in the day, if I saw him playing a beat when I was into like Dream Theater, my Portnoy, I'd be like, oh, it's fucking easy, you know? But yeah, so I guess it was just practicing all of that weird stuff, trying to get good at it. And then, but even now, still, like, I'll watch a video from a year ago and be like, ew, that's so sloppy of me, you know? There's still the progression that you see. And I think it's also because your ears are developing still, which is a beautiful thing because I don't want to be the best at the drums because then there's no room to grow. It's nice still seeing like some kind of progress.
Yeah,
And I think it'll be that way for the rest of my life, which is also very beautiful.
that's great. And yeah, if you're listening to recordings of yourself from just a year ago and noticing a bunch of improvement, that means that you're probably behind the scenes, like keeping up a steady practice routine and like continuing to climb. So that's awesome.
I am not. I am not practicing. I'm not right now. I've been just doing a
I
lot of
teed you
editing
up
this
there.
past year. Yeah, which sucks, you know, the like editing a lot nowadays gives me less time to play the drums, but also like I go through periods of inspiration and not. And over the years I've learned not to like fight that. Um, if like I don't feel like playing, then I just, you know, don't play. Whereas back in the day it was like I have to get good, I have to be better. But now it's like it's a hobby, dude. And I only want to play the drums when I feel like playing the drums. And back in the day it was work because I was gigging with like a bunch of different bands as well.
Yeah.
And playing on the cruise ships for 8 months, and you were playing every single day cover songs for like old people who don't care, and it just like kills your soul. I'm like, why am I doing this? You know? I want to play drums when I like hear a song and I'm like, oh, that's a sick song. Like, what's he doing? And I want to practice it and learn it. Um, so that's another cool realization I think I've had over the past few years is like not to fight the inspiration, and when it comes, then like strike while the iron's hot.
That's a deep point. And I'd imagine like a lot of the hard work that you did earlier on kind of created some momentum so that even if in your 30s you're not shedding 5 hours every day, just by being exposed to music and listening, you're picking up stuff. So that's great.
Totally. And you've probably experienced this too. Like once you hit this certain point in drumming where it becomes like when you start drumming, it's more about the physical thing. You're like, my hands and feet aren't doing this. But then you get it like crosses paths and it becomes more of a mental thing. It's like, what am I thinking about? Versus like trying to get your hands to, unless you're like trying to play 200 beats per minute or whatever. But you
Totally.
know what I mean? It's like turns into a mental game.
Yeah, there. I don't feel like my hand speed is what's limiting my chops. Like I couldn't think fast enough to play stuff like Mike Mitchell does, even if my hands would do it. So like when people ask me like how do I get my hands as fast as Mike Mitchell's, I'm like, so that you can do what? Like you
Yeah.
think all of a sudden like his ideas are just gonna infuse into you through the practice pad? So I totally feel that.
Yeah.
Let's segue to the production quality stuff. And you can take it any direction you want, but I thought maybe one thing I would tee it up with is you've seen my before shots or whatever. What were like the primary things that jumped out to you as like low hanging fruit for improvement?
Yeah. You talking about the video that you sent me like not too long ago, the Gavin Harrison one?
Yes. So yeah, I linked you like a YouTube video, which is actually just my most recent. So that's the state of the art for me. And as I said, like the sitting speaking to camera stuff, I think is like slightly better. But even that needs work, I'm sure. But like the behind the drum shots, I'm just lost. Like it just looks like ass to me.
Okay, well, we'll start with lighting because I think that's well, it's obviously one of the most important things. Um, for one, you do need enough light in the room that way your camera isn't shooting at a high ISO because a high ISO means a lot of noise. You know, in the dark shadows up here, you'll get like little specks of purple and green popping around. So you need enough light in the room so your camera can, you know, absorb the light, but also um, it depends on the lighting source. So again, a lot of people think a bunch of tiny little LED lights will be sick. I would rather have one big soft box than 10 small LEDs because the reason a softbox is great is because it's a bigger light source, and the bigger the light source, the softer the shadows will be. By that I mean, like, imagine if you take a flashlight and shine it at something, the shadow on the wall is going to be like an exact image of the thing that you're shining the light on. But if you have a softbox, you have light coming from this side, and it softens that background shadow, and overall, it just creates a better feeling. So one thing you can do in your videos is if you have the ability to get a softbox for any of the lights that you have, I would suggest doing that. Even on Amazon, they sell lighting kits with softboxes. Like that's what I have right here. It's what I have above my drum set from Amazon. I think you get two lights and two softbox for like $80 or something like that. And yeah, it just spreads the light around because yeah, if you have a tiny source light, then it's like a flashlight. You might as well have a flashlight on you. Um, so that is a big one. In that video you sent me, forget his name. Hang on. Craig Reynolds. He's definitely got a softbox on him in his talking head. It's such a soft, nice, pleasing light source that's just like gliding his face. Also, the direction of the light matters too. What I do for a lot of my talking head stuff is like have it I actually have a light right here, but this is just like a makeup tutorial light. Speaking of makeup tutorial, like they have it right here. So you don't want straight on lighting because it's like your whole face is lit. You want some like dimension because then you get some shadows over here. So I usually have the light like 45 degrees off of my face, and it's actually called Rembrandt lighting. I think because this painter, something Rembrandt back in the day, used to paint people, and they used to have this little triangle on their cheek that the light would create.
Hmm.
It's called a Rembrandt triangle, but it just makes for a more dimension and more contrast, and you look like more 3D instead of like flat with a fucking light like this. but so yeah, so you're sitting here staring at the camera. Put your light 45 degrees this side, whichever is your freaking good side, and then yeah, I always like to have like a bit of shadow on one side of the face.
Mm-hmm.
So that's light one. That's your key light. And then if you want, you can use a fill light to kind of fill in the shadow on this side.
Yeah.
Um, but it would be a lot dimmer. So that just allows you to control how dark the shadowed side of your face is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to get really sick, you can have like a backlight. It's usually like if there's a black background and your subject has black hair, it'll light their hair up a little bit just to separate them from the background or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so so that can work both for your talking head and your playing videos. I like just the top light on the drums because it gives that like police interrogation vibe, like and it just makes it look super dramatic. Um,
And you have it built into the drop ceiling there, right?
yeah, I made this like little cloud thing. So
Sick.
there's also insulate. That's all insulation in there, and then I cut a hole in the middle. And I used to work in a wood shop too, where we'd build like kitchens and stuff like that. So I kind of learned how to build things, but it's super easy. But um, yeah, it's kind of built it into the ceiling and just shines down on the drums. But it's not even an expensive light that's in there. It's that Amazon kit. So yeah, you can get creative with how you want to light your drums, but in your case, you rent that space, right?
I do.
Yeah, so you can't really like drill into the walls or anything like that.
No, it's all got to be portable, which I think is a challenge that many a filmmaker has faced. I mean, like Netflix, we're watching this documentary. Their filmmakers are good at going into any space and making it look amazing, even if it's like a hoarder house. So I know it's possible.
Yeah, totally. So I guess in your case, the biggest thing I would say is like try and find a softbox or a way to make your key light source bigger.
Mhm.
If you can't get a softbox, one thing you can do is literally just like hang a white sheet up and then shine the light at that white sheet because then you'll get this big old light source that's kind of lighting your face up. Are there any like ceiling lights in there or anything, or is it all just darkness in that studio?
There are some wall mounted lights.
Don't fucking use those.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, the overhead's going to be the challenge because even in this studio, I mean, maybe I could, but it's
I
probably
wouldn't even
difficult
say
to
you
like drill
need
into
it.
the ceiling. Yeah, and then especially if I'm traveling or something, like obviously I can't do that. So
No, you don't need it. If you honestly, if you have one key light with a softbox, it would look beautiful. You can shut every other light off in the room and have that key light like 45 degrees off side to your face, and you're good to go. Everything else is just like icing on the cake. When people have like neon lights behind them and stuff, that's just like little icing to create some kind of depth between them.
so
Um,
so primary takeaway first of all is like all the other lights off and then softbox for the key light. If there's no room for an overhead, forget it. It's not important. The main thing is like a big diffuse light source. And I suppose once you have that, the rest you're doing to a degree with the camera settings, right? So you have the f-stop, the ISO, and the shutter speed are kind of your three tools to play with, right?
yes, sir. So it's also understanding about how each of those kind of affect what the camera's doing. The next
Mhm.
like biggest important thing I would say is the aperture. Um, because the lower the aperture, uh, the shallower depth of field you get. So
Mhm.
that'll separate you from the background. Like I noticed that in this guy's video, Craig Reynolds, he's running it at a lower aperture um, because the background is blurry and he's like tack sharp in focus in the foreground. Um, so I think you said your lens, you have an 18 to 55 that goes down to f4. I just looked it up.
Mhm.
Um, so I would set that aperture to f4. That also, basically, what aperture is doing is, I don't know if you know, but it's opening up the iris of the camera to physically like let more light in.
Yeah.
So you ever had your eyes dilated, like to get contacts or anything like that?
Yeah, back in the day, like for eye exams, sure.
Yeah, same exact thing is happening to your eyes. They drop things in your eye, they dilate. You walk outside, it's like bright as fuck and blurry.
Yeah.
Literally the same thing. Yeah. So your camera's opening up, a bunch of lights coming in. It's blurry. There's like a shallow depth of field. So flick that camera on manual. Lower the aperture as low as it possibly goes. Because you're in a dark studio, you're gonna need that light anyways.
F-stop as low as possible. lets a ton of light in, also keeps the depth of field shallow, and then we probably want to create light from the lights in the room and also from the shutter speed, and less so from the ISO, right? That's what I've heard.
Yeah. So shutter speed is kind of a bit different when you're taking photos versus video. So
Mm-hmm.
in video, it depends what frame rate you're shooting at. Your shutter speed should depend on what frame rate you're shooting. So if you're shooting 24 frames a second, you want the shutter speed to be 1/48th. They basically say double the frame rate. Yeah. Because in video, it's actually 180 degrees. I won't go into it, but yeah, it's double it. So if you're shooting at 60 frames a second, what should your shutter speed be?
120.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful.
You paused there for a second. I thought I'd gotten it wrong.
No, that was it. And this is basically to get a normal motion blur, like similar to what your eye sees.
Mm.
Also, you'll notice like sometimes you'll watch a video and you'll see like flickering. Maybe their shutter speed is set to a weird setting that's like in sync with the fluorescent lights in the room or whatever. Or like you film a TV and you see like the lines. This will prevent that if you follow that rule, like doubling the frame rate.
So that gives us a narrow window to allow light in with the camera.
Yes.
Because the f-stop is fixed at pretty much the lowest possible, and the ISO is fixed because we don't want it to look crappy, and the shutter speed is pretty much dictated by the frame rate. So the main way to create lighting is with the physical lights in the room, I assume.
Exactly. Yeah, in a perfect studio setting, they would do that. So they'd set the camera settings to the best possible settings to make it look as good as they want, and then adjust the lights accordingly. Like a lot of the expensive lights go like so bright, and then you can just tweak them, go and then adjust it that way. Um, but for us, it's not as simple. So you can adjust the ISO up or down or whatever, but those are the important things. So have the low aperture, shutter speed has to be the same, um, and then adjust your ISO until it like nothing's overexposed or underexposed. There's one more thing I want to say with shutter speed. You can push it a little bit. So say you're 24 frames a second and you're shooting at 1/48th. I did this with a lot of my drumming videos. I would push the shutter speed even to like 1/100th. That's like a faster shutter because it makes the drumsticks look like they're moving like fast for some reason. Like it sharpens them and just makes it for some reason look really cool. So if you're doing a drum cover and you want your hands to look like they're moving fast and like a little choppy, you can make the shutter a bit faster. I believe they do this in like action films to make them look like they're fighting like faster or sharper or whatever. But yeah, that's just like another random tip.
And that would generally let less light in as well, right? So you would need brighter lights.
Exactly.
Okay. This is all. Oh, go ahead.
It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. For ISO, a lot of cameras have a native ISO, which will produce the least amount of noise. So for anyone listening, I would just recommend looking up what the native ISO to their camera is. And if you have the amount of light to be able to shoot at the native ISO, then I would do that.
So my next question is about like camera placement relative to the drums. I know to some degree that's going to be dictated by the room, but do you have any? So I guess there are a couple layers. Like one is just absolute do's and don'ts. Like it's literally going to look like shit if you do this, so don't do this. But then on top of that, there's taste, because I know you like to shoot from a low angle because it's artsy or whatever sometimes. But yeah, are there any absolute do's and don'ts or like pet peeves in terms of camera placement when it comes to shooting the drums? Like, are you making it harder for yourself if you're too far away or too close?
No, not particularly. Like it also depends on how wide your lens goes, because obviously you have a pretty wide lens, 18. Um, So if you're really wide, then you can get up close and like it kind of gets that personal feeling, like because you're right there. I used to like that, like being really wide and close for my talking head stuff because it seems like personable, like you're close to the person. But if you have like if you're really zoomed in and you're far away, it kind of gives this like weird distancy feeling, and you feel like you're watching. I don't know, someone who's like not trying to help you out or something. I don't know.
Or a green screen or something.
Yeah, but there's a certain emotion that I guess it evokes at whatever, however far away or close you are. I do like to keep the camera low, but that's just because I'm a stickler about the lines on the wall. Like if I tilt my camera down, you see this line here, it's like crooked,
Mm.
and then everything else is like crooked. But I always like try and square it up. You see how it's like lined up with the side of the frame now? Like that's kind of the stuff that I see. So I usually center the camera and like have it all squared up, like how Wes Anderson would like line up a shot.
Yeah, Wes's stuff looks great.
So that's what just bothers me. I think it's because I'm ADD or something like that, but that's not the right word, is it?
No, I think that is literally the right word. Yeah. That's exactly the right word.
Yeah, it's fun with the camera angles because you can just get creative, like just walk around the drums. And obviously, I'm looking at the screen and I like just walk around and see what looks good. I always make sure there's like not too much headroom or my head's getting cut off. It's like a kind of standard rule of thumb. Um, but yeah, you can't go wrong with just like the straight on drum angle. I just make sure the lines are all squared up. I actually hate the angles where you're like looking down on the kit. I do hate that. But
You mean like the overheads?
oh no, I don't mind an overhead, like a straight down overhead, because again, like that's like a Wes Anderson symmetrical thing. But like off to the side, as if someone has a video camera up to their eye and they're like right next to the drum set and they're staring down at it.
Oh yeah.
But I agree for like lessons, it's probably the best angle because you can see what's going on. You can see their hands moving. Do you even have a tom? Do you have a rack tom there behind you?
I it looks like you've got a four piece back there, and for all intents and purposes, that's what I play too.
I actually like shooting on the hi-hat side too, like down low, almost level with the hi-hat itself. Because then the camera kind of like cuts through. You can see the snare, the rack tom, the floor tom.
I have two more big questions, and let's take them in this order. The first one would be I have an instinct. So I told you the camera I have. It's like a $600 Canon EOS from a few years ago. Doesn't shoot 4K. It's like 1090p. My instinct is like I want to learn to drive on the racetrack before I invest in a Ferrari. Meaning, like, I think there's a lot of extra performance I can coax out of my camera before I blow a bunch of money on like a brand name 4K camera. Do you think that's correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Hang on a sec. Um, this this is what I shot like the majority of my YouTube videos on
Hmm.
until like a year and a half ago. So anything you saw over a year and a half ago was shot on this. It's a Canon M50. There's no lens on it, but I just had the kit lens on there. Similar thing to probably what you have.
Hmm.
And then when I had this camera, I did exactly what you said. I was like, how do I get the most performance out of this $500 camera? And then I started shooting manual, started adjusting all those settings. Um, so it is possible. It's 100% possible, and you're definitely on the right track. Like you wouldn't buy a DW Collector Series when you just started playing the drums.
Right.
Oh, so I went from this to the DW Collector Series. Like this is what I shoot on now.
Is that the red?
No, it's a wannabe red.
Oh, I see.
It's like it looks like the Komodo, but it's similar specs. This is the Zcam E2 S6. It just has like a little bit bigger sensor than this one. It shoots 4K. But this is where the goods are in the lens, because this goes
Hmm.
down to f1.8. So that's how you get the shallow depth of field. So if you're going to invest in anything, like get a lens for your camera that has a lower aperture, and then freaking open that iris up, and you'll separate yourself from the background, even if you're 2 feet from the wall. Um, so yeah, lenses play a huge part in it because of the aperture. But you'll quickly notice that lenses with a lower aperture are freaking expensive.
Probably if you're a beginner or an intermediate at filming, as long as you have like a good basic camera, dollars spent on upgrading lenses are going to go farther in the short term than dollars spent upgrading the camera body. Or at least that's kind of the order of operations. Because if you learn to get all the performance out of the lens, and then you upgrade a camera body, you're going to immediately realize those gains. Where if it's the other way around, you might just be pissing money away for a while.
Totally. I would 100% agree with that. It's most of it is in the lens, especially because most cameras nowadays are like so good. All the dude, your iPhone is so good. They shot an Olivia Rodrigo music video with the latest iPhone, and it blows my mind how great it looks. Um, but don't use your iPhone. You can now. If you have an iPhone 15, you can use it. And the reason actually the iPhone 15 is so cool is because it shoots log, which is also my next tip.
Hmm.
Is when you shoot on auto, um, it pops out an image like we see now on the computer. It's all contrasty. The blacks are super black. The whites are super white. It's all saturated with color. There's a setting on your camera where you can choose to shoot in a flatter color profile. Uh, I don't know if your camera will have it. This camera does not have it, and it's called log. It's basically a super low contrast image that retains all of the information. So when you bring it into the editor, you can then add in the contrast and color grade it to look exactly how you want.
That's what the pros shoot in, right?
Yeah, log. That's what I shoot all my stuff in now too. So,
Hmm.
and I would say like 50% of the reason why people probably think my videos look good is because of the color grading. Because
Mm-hmm.
everyone's so used to seeing an image that looks like this, which is like a standard, like it's called Rec 709. That's your standard color profile. And once you see something a little bit different, like in all the movies, you go and there's like a little bit of green in the shadows, and the skin tones look nice and balanced and soft, and that's what creates that like filmic look, which is like what I've
Mm.
always been after. Um, so yeah, color grading is the next massive thing that will make your videos look good. If you shoot in log like a flat color profile and then color grade them, or you can put a LUT on it is what it's called. It's a lookup table. It's like an Instagram filter. So if you don't want to go in there and tweak all these things, you can put this filter, this LUT on your video and make it look like cinematic or whatever.
Do they have those as like add-ons for Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro?
Yep.
Oh snap! It's called log on the camera, right? I need to Google this. Probably my camera doesn't do it, but if not, as soon as I get a better camera, I'm in.
But what I did for my camera is there's this profile you can download online. Dang it. I'm going to look this up just so I can tell you. I don't remember the name
Yeah.
of it. Um, it's basically a flat color profile, and it's called Cine Style, I think. Yeah, Cine Style. So go online,
Okay.
type in Cine Style download for Canon. You can download it, and it's like a log for your camera.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna do this.
Seriously, if you have the time, like do it because that's exactly what I did for my camera and my videos. You'll if you like go back on my videos, you'll see when I was like shooting regular and then my videos started like being color graded differently, and that's when I started the journey of color grading, which dude, it will take you years because I'm still working on it to this day. Um but it's fun. Like I really enjoy it, like tweaking the video and having more control and like trying to make it look the best that I possibly can.
Well, to that end, last question before I let you go. Once we've mastered the basics through some of these tips you've given us, at the level you're seeing things at, you must have like some sort of YouTube cliches or pet peeves. And I'm wondering if you can dish about some of those. Like, what are some things where you're just like, oh, he's doing this thing. It's like, oh, this is so over. Like, why don't people like, what's the thing where you're like, come on, guys, move on, stop doing this thing.
No, there's nothing really like that. Like, I'm a big YouTube watcher, man. I spend like every evening just scrolling random YouTube videos.
Same.
One thing I don't like is just the Mr. Beast-esque type, like big fucking titles on the screen and like, I'm gonna do this. Blah. I like a more slow burn, like uh I don't know, just YouTube is so like becoming so fast paced now and like videos are being made for viewer retention and like
Right.
uh big ugly titles and shit like that. And I'm more of like a slow pace, like cinematic guy. Like I just wanted to tell a nice story and yeah, I don't know. But no, there's not many pet peeves I have besides that. The Mr. Beast bubble font and and yeah. But in terms of the drum space, no, like there's no pet peeves I have. I love like being or what I would consider to be like involved in the drumming community because I think overall the drumming community is very supportive and cool to one another. There's no like gatekeeping or from what I see. Um, everyone's like super welcoming and supportive.
Yeah. And by the way, I wasn't asking you to dish on other drummers. I know that would have been putting you in an awkward spot. I do have a pivot though, which is like favorite non-drum YouTubers and like people you get inspiration from. I'll give you one, Johnny Harris.
Yep. Love his
Great,
videos.
right?
Same thing. You could tell he's like a stickler for aesthetics and color grading and oh, Vox. He used to work at Vox.
Mhm.
And I love their videos because one, their graphics. He used to do like the map graphics for Vox. And that's actually kind of what I think Johnny Harris is one of the reasons why I started like trying to make my videos look better is because his look
Okay.
good and also his graphics looked so good. Um, and yeah, just the way they always have these graphics with it's called posterized time. They're in like 12 frames a second, which is like what animations are shot in, but it gives it this like cool, like jittery animation vibe, and I love that. But yeah, whenever I'm watching YouTube videos, I always look out for just like little things like that. Uh, I watched Peter McKinnon's videos for a while back in the day, and he inspired me in terms of like the look, like the talking head thing, because his videos always just looked so pleasing. Um, Casey Neistat videos just for the storytelling and like
For
the
sure.
quick cut editing style. Um, and then I watch a lot of Corridor Crew. They basically do like VFX artists react videos. So like they
Oh,
watch,
I like
yeah,
those
they watch
guys.
all
Yeah.
these old movies or new movies and they pause it and like they try and figure out how that VFX shot was done. They really got me into like trying to make VFX videos and just like try VFX things.
Are those the guys who tried to recreate the sword fight from the original Dune?
I don't know. I don't
There's
know.
I'm gonna
Maybe.
search that after this. I think it's those guys. Yeah, but it took them weeks, and it was just they had to manually paste everything in. It was excruciating, but they go that deep. Yeah, I'm into that stuff too. This has been great. I really appreciate your time. Where would you send people to check out what you've got going on these days?
Drumeo.com. I'm just kidding. No, they can check out my YouTube channel, which is probably slowly dying. Brandon Scott on YouTube. And then on Instagram, Brandon Scott Drums. That's pretty much it. No TikTok. Screw TikTok.
Yeah, I'll go on record there too. Let them sue me. Anyway, well, this has been awesome, man. Really appreciate your time. It's great to catch up, albeit on the record. But I'm gonna rewatch this and take copious notes and try to implement all your suggestions and let you know how it goes and hopefully make a video about the whole thing.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, if you have any questions or whatever, you can call or text me or anything. Because, dude, it's a lot. And from having this conversation, you probably know it's a lot of stuff. It's not going to happen overnight. So it's a
Yeah, there are
journey
baby
that
steps.
you're embarking on right now. But I'm
Little by
honored that
little.
you came to me.
No, I'm honored. I really appreciate you being willing to talk to me. Anyway, man, I'll let you know when I post this. But otherwise, great to catch up and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, mate. Chat to you later.